So in one retail chain we worked with, store managers would routinely trade good shifts, like work shifts, for favors. That's actually transactional behavior, it's low TOMO. The average TOMO of that subordinate in our data set is about -1. The next type of leader, we call them the hands-off because they're not really doing any of the direct or indirect. If I'm being honest with myself, before we studied this is the kind of leader I was. Like my mental model was, I knew I shouldn't be this. I knew enough to know this was bad. So what I started to do was this, which was I gave my people tons and tons of space. I never really interacted with them. I thought they valued that autonomy. And only when things were bad did I actually step in. That really is this profile. And what that does in terms of TOMO, the subordinate, is not much. It takes it from -1 to 11. This is why my own company before this was a meh culture. Now you have the person that does both, direct and indirect. They're essentially trying just about every motivator they can possibly come up with. Sometimes they're transactional, sometimes they're using guilt, sometimes they're using emotional pressure, sometimes they are thinking about play, purpose, and potential. But as you guys know by now, the combination of the two isn't good. It's actually, they cancel each other out. And so you get to a TOMO not much higher than the 11, 14. Finally, you get to what we call the fire starter. This is the leader that only uses the direct motives, doesn't use the indirect ones. Very much focused on how do I make this more play? How do I make this more purpose? How do I make this more potential? And the average TOMO of that subordinate goes up quite a lot, to about 38. So you can see that the theory itself predicts how leadership behaviors manifest in terms of people's motives. And so we'll leave you with 3 things that you guys can start to do right away, even if you don't have control over the rest of your culture's ecosystem. The first thing is quite simply, ask yourself, which of these do you think you are? And see if you can force yourself to the top row here. Really try to focus on how do you make that work play? How do you make that work purpose? How do you make that work potential? The second thing is, we find that if people simply share the language that we just shared with you, if they understand what TOMO is, if they understand what the motives are, if they understand the difference between tactical and adaptive performance, you can actually talk about this stuff. In so many organizations, they just don't have a language to describe any of what we just talked about, so you don't talk about it. Step 1 is encourage your team to just learn this language. That's it. Thing number 2 is you can't actually measure your team's TOMO. As a simple tool, we have a free survey on our website if you wanted to use it that actually not just measures your team's TOMO, but actually facilitates a conversation. The goal of measurement isn't actually a report card, because that would be low TOMO. The goal of measurement is to diagnose what to do and actually have a conversation around it. The last thing is a very simple tip. It's a tip that we do in our own organization where we have a weekly reflection huddle. In that huddle, we ask our people 3 questions. What did you learn this week? Which really is focused on play. How did you create impact this week, which is focused on purpose? And what do you want to learn next week? And we just, within each team we go around, we just answer those 3 questions for that week. It does a couple of things. It reminds us of the play and purpose of our work. Secondly, it actually allows us to scale what we've learned. It actually scales up our adaptive performance. 3 simple things. There's obviously more that one could do when you really are thinking about the whole of an organization. But these are easy things that we can start doing right away. I think with that, we can open it up to questions. There's actually plenty more that you can learn about this stuff. But let's kind of leave it at that and see what you guys have in your minds. Yeah.
So at the beginning, talking about doing nothing, praise, or reward, have you seen anything that shows the difference between praise and demonstrating appreciation? Or whether that counts as the same thing, or if it's a different...
That's such a good question.
Yeah.
Do you want to Ellie?
Sure. It's all...
Can you repeat the question?
Can you repeat the question?
So the question was, have you seen research in which there's a difference between praise and showing appreciation? Right? And so when you look at all of these experiments, you have to look at if they're shifting why somebody is doing something. So in the experiments, when somebody starts to do it for the praise, it tends to reduce adaptive performance. But when the praise is not shifting your reason for working, it's just, for example, a nice indicator that what you're doing is working, it doesn't tend to reduce adaptive performance.
If you think about appreciation, if you're not using appreciation as a way to subtly manipulate your people.
Yeah.
Right? It's a very interesting thing that you have to think about through the lens of the motives. Some people will use